So we have a long history, but we also are really excited to welcome new members and new ideas to this organization. So we'd like to thank Will right off the bat, Amber and Braden in particular, for hosting us here tonight. And we really encourage you to head up to the bar to put in a drink or food order at any point in the meeting. And if you've already had a few beverages, leave the bathrooms, they're just behind us over here. We're going to have some sharing plates coming out after the business portion of the meeting, so that should entice you to stick around for the really tasty snacks that are going to be served later on. So we'll sit tight for those. So, just waiting for the folks over there by the door to calm down. That's all I got to teacher. Okay, so I'm now going to introduce you to our very hardworking chair of our GCAP board, so Adrian Salvatore. So Adrian is the only board member who also serves on all three of our committees: programming, events, advocacy, and governance and administration. And he is an amazing active transportation advocate, and he'll be facilitating the business portion of tonight's meeting. So let's give it up for Adrian Salvatore.
I just want to take a moment and really recognize all of you for being there. This is a very important opportunity for GCAS, for our membership to engage in GCAS governance. And these things aren't always fun, as much as we do our best to make it fun. Thank you, Royal City, for hosting us. Please do buy a beer. As much as we try to make this fun, these things aren't always fun, but they are very, very important. They are key to making our organization efficient, effective, and making sure that we understand all of our membership's concerns and are advocating for what you care about when it comes to active transportation in our community, land use planning, other municipal and provincial issues. So thank you all for being here. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize our volunteers working the door. Give them a round. We have so many great dedicated volunteers who are always happy to come out and help us out, and it really makes what we do work. Without their hands, our efforts wouldn't be possible. So, again, thank you all for being here, and I'm just going to confirm our secretary is ready to take notes before I call this meeting to order. I will call us to order here at 7:06. Okay, folks, so this is our agenda for tonight that was sent out to everybody in advance. I need a motion to approve this agenda. Can we get a mover? Thank you. Arvin? Thank you. Thank you, Bart. Seconder for the agenda? I see Sean, I think, is hand up first. Sean Castle, thank you. I got that right? Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so agenda's on the floor. Any discussion on that? If you have something to add, now would be the time. So, seeing none. Thank you, folks. And just to show of hands to approve the agenda, hands up for yes. Great. I will call the agenda passed. So our next order of business is the approval of last year's meeting minutes, which you were all provided as well. I need someone to move last year's minutes. Approval. Kyle, thank you. Kyle Mackey, seconder for last year's minutes. Lorenz, thank you. Second by Lorenz. Okay. Is there any discussion on the previous year's minutes? Okay. Seeing none, we will call the vote on that. All in favor of approving last year's minutes as presented, as delivered, sorry. I will call that passed. Thank you very much. All right. So now we've got that out of the way. I just want to take a moment to introduce all of our current board members here. Board members, can you stand up? We have Andrea, who handles our social media and many, many other things, great policy documents work on the advocacy side and the events. A very, very dedicated, busy individual. We thank her greatly for our efforts. We We have Andre, who is chair of our governance and administration committee. He handles a lot of the behind the scenes work of keeping GCAT an efficient, well-oiled advocacy machine. Give a shout out to Kyle there. Kyle served on our advocacy and events and was the point person, really the lead for the excellent movie that we went put on last year. I'm sure many of you folks went to that, so thank you, Kyle. Shout out to Mike, who chairs our advocacy committee. Very, very dedicated. I'm sure you all know Mike. Thank you, Mike. We've got Katie hiding in the back. Thank you, Katie. Katie chaired our events committee. And Virginia hiding somewhere. Shout out to Virginia. Mike Jagger running the audio for us right here. And ready to go. And I think I got everybody in the room. Yes. All right. Great. And with that, we will move on to the treasurer's report. So just before we kick that off, I will say our treasurer unfortunately gave us regrets today. That is Adam, who could not be with us. He had a work commitment called him out. So he has recorded a video for us ahead of time, and we have Andre here to help field any questions you may have about his report. But with that, we will go to the treasurer's report. We did that. Sorry, I think we should have been.
So this video will briefly explain 2023 financial statements, after which Andre will be pleased to take questions from the floor, and we will have a motion on these statements. Following that, I will join you again to present 2024 base operating budget. Starting with our statement of operations, I'd like to highlight that overall revenues are up significantly from 2022. Membership fees increased by a little over $600, and we did very well in terms of donations, grants, and other revenue, all of which are breakdown on the next statement. In $5,650 of expenses, which will again break down in the next statement, for an operating surplus just over $8,300. Please keep in mind that $7,250 of those dollars is directly spoken for and is being spent in 2024. Also, we have $15,224.53 in bank accounts as of December 31st, 2023. Presently, we actually have two bank accounts, both with Bank of Montreal. The old account is for unregistered community groups. It is part of our governance updating. We are transitioning to the community account for incorporated organizations. This statement of cash flows further expanded the reserve of inflation over the last slide. Focusing on our income, I'd like to especially mention the work conducted by our events committee, who generated almost $4,300 in various targeted donations, grants, ticket sales for certain events, such as the engineering side of the week. So well-done events people, and it's very much appreciated. There's also a large $7,000 Guelph Community Wellbeing Grant for the governance committee, which is used to purchase various software to support customer relationship management and financial accounting for GCAP. $1,000 for software and $6,000 for contracting and system design and implementation. In terms of operating expenses, the bulk of expenses for events, various supplies, space rental fees, like the for an event, and the governance committee for pays for items that support the basic existence of GCAP. These are in line with previous years, and there are new expenses for software and Tenco. Software includes a new customer relationship management system that we like, and QuickBooks for accounting. And we have memberships with its insurance fees, special use, as our business address, and the board meetings. Finally, I'd like to present our statement of financial position for the year. As stated previously, we have $18,224.83 in the bank as of December 31st, and there's one small outstanding invoice for $100. The restricted assets are simply units whose use is specifically defined. I see $995 available to exit from the connection, which does have 2024 expenses, as well as $1,250 for wrapping up our school's mapping project, which is being paid out in 2024. $6,000 of the community wellbeing grant for system setup, $3,000 of which has been paid out in 2024, and the first milestone was met. The final $750 for events is simply because some events will be specifically earmarked for supporting GCAP events. So with that, we'll take a pause for Andre to field any questions and administer the financial statements motion. Thanks very much, and see you in a few minutes.
Are there any questions at all regarding those financial statements? Meg?
I can understand a lot of what you say, so I'm just, because of what we're moving the funds. That's something to do with it.
Well, I think what he actually mentioned was that there were two bank accounts, and one bank account was for unregistered, not-for-profit organizations. And now that we are registered, and we had actually, and that account was opened in 2016 before incorporation. And as we went to the Bank of Montreal now with our new registration papers and bylaws, etc., we said, oh, we didn't actually know we were incorporated, and they required that we open up a new percent reference. So it's transferring all the assets from one bank account to another.
Okay, so you're not changing your account.
Well, no, so the actual accounting method isn't changing. We did implement QuickBooks, so up until then, Adam had been, and our previous treasurers have been doing work on Excel. And now that QuickBooks has been implemented, I mean, the accounting method is still double entry bookkeeping, in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles.
Just what other questions get I can hear, the $2,000 for the events committee grant.
So the events committee received a grant from the city of Guelph, or at least funding for the city of Guelph, actually for policing of the Take Back the Night. And then the police were unavailable, so that money is still earmarked, and the city basically said you can keep that money, but you have to use it for similar type of purposes, right? So there's that. You did mention that the events committee did otherwise receive funds from, like, for instance, for the movie night, ticket sales, etc.
Bike tonight.
Bike night, yeah. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, then if we go to the next slide, there's a motion to approve the financial statements for 2023. So first of all, do we have a motion to approve the GCAS 2023 financial statements? I could get your name, please. Get that, Adrian. And second by name, please. Rich Lyle. All in favor? That's passed. Then secondly, there is a ONCA, or Ontario Not-for-Profit Act requirement that if we don't want to pay for an auditor and we're going to accept the financial statements, we need a motion not to appoint an auditor and not to have an audit or review engagement with respect to the GCAS 2023 financial year. So if we could have that motion. And second by Barb Manning. All in favor? That passes as well. So next we have a slide for a video from Adam very quickly regarding our budget for the upcoming year. It's really just a summary of what we're allocating to the various committees.
Can you just clarify something with the online participants that they're asking if we can vote on these motions as well?
So the online participants can vote as well.
use the raise hands.
Yeah, just raise your hand on the Zoom call.
Which one? Next video. Oh.
Each of the three committees for 2024. The key word here is base. In all cases, committees are welcome to generate external funding to support any expenses beyond their base operations, as we've seen with both the events and police committees this past year. Using 2023 general fund and 2023 community expenses as a guide, for 2024, GCAP will allocate $500 to support the advocacy committee, $1,500 to support the events committee, and $4,000 for the governance committee to use for expenses fundamental to the running of the organization. This totals $6,000. Monies for votes for community connections, rapid and mapping project, and the CRM setup contract are all accounted for separate from these figures. Some of you may be wondering why we are sticking to a relatively conservative base operating budget, even though we've recently raised the membership fees. And the simple answer is we went to pay for the year ahead using the year before. So we are essentially budgeting from the dollars that we have definitely in hand, and the raised fees that are coming in this coming year will essentially from the budget in 2025. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, I'm sure I'll be able to take them. Thanks again, and hope you have a great rest of the evening.
And are there any? Oh, it's got switched over.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Oh, are there any questions regarding that? Very quick summary. The budget is simply a allocation of the funds that we have available this year to be spent next year, and doesn't actually include any, for instance, programming and events where that committee wants more money or needs more money that they can generate themselves. So if they feel that they can generate funds through ticket sales or through grants or donations, then those funds would be available for them to increase the budgets that we have shown here. You see, it's a very modest budget, and as Adam stated, we just want to be able to cover next year's expenses with funds we have available this year. If there's no questions, then we'll just move on. Back to Adrian.
All right, thank you so much, Andre, for that. And giving our thanks to Adam as well, who unfortunately again couldn't be here with us tonight. But it is because of their hard work, because of Andre's hard work, Adam's hard work, and the whole governance and administration committee's hard work, that GCAT is in the good financial position we are in. In fact, I'm excited to share with you all that we have raised nearly 2/3 of this year's budgeted membership and donations already as of today. We are 2/3 of the way there. So thank you for your contribution. Good, sound financial position that helps us do all the great things that we do. With that, I will move us over onto the advocacy committee, who has a report of their activities over the last year.
Thanks, Adrian. So last year, I was president of GCAP, and I think my presentation was a little too long. And this year I'm not, so I've been told to keep it a little shorter by a few people here. In fact, I'm a little afraid of her wrath. So, all kidding aside, because we have provided many regular informative newsletters by Andrea and Virginia, I don't really need to go into a lot of detail, actually. So our first slide here shows the kind of a little down, actually. The Ward to Downtown Bridge was awarded. The tender was awarded, but unfortunately, just recently the tender was canceled, and it had to do with the proximity of the Spring Mill Distillery being very close to the bridge. So We're obviously disappointed. We've talked to staff and we're hoping that, some sort of solution will eventually come up so we can get this bridge because it's really the gateway to the extension to the Trans-Canada Trail, which is on the next slide. And, thanks, Audrey. So the Trans-Canada Trail is really important to us because it's basically following the same railroad track as the north section of the Trans-Canada Trail. That's the GJR line, and it's ending right downtown right now, but we would love to go all the way to Victoria Road. And actually, you'll see the little RBC right there. That's actually not the Royal Bank of Canada, it's actually Royal City Brewery. We had a little typo on that one, so I think I'd rather be here than at the Royal Bank. And along that trail is the Woods development, which is coming up between Huron Street and Duke Street. There's going to be 1,500 people living there approximately. And of course, the GID at the end will have 6,000 people, just a short jog up Victoria Road. So we're hoping that bridge issue becomes resolved and it'll make just a gorgeous way to get down to these huge developments. Next slide, please. So this slide was provided by Fusion Homes just the other day, actually. It's not complete, but it's kind of giving an idea of what's going to happen in the GID. And what I love about the Fusion Homes vision for this city within the city is the connectivity and also the mixed use that they're proposing for actually some of the employment lands that recently has been converted to residential. So you can kind of see what's going to be in a 10-minute walk and a 20-minute walk from there. Unfortunately, it's not really showing the detail of the proposed connection we're hoping to get. But we're working with Fusion on that, and you will see an updated map on that in the future. Next map, please. So this map is actually kind of our proposal. I don't know if it'll actually work, but when we reach RCD, which is just at Victoria and York, there's actually a laneway that runs parallel to Victoria Road, and it's actually a perfect way to get up to the Victoria Bridge, and then it's just a short jog into the Innovation District. And I know from the last slide that Fusions are proposing a couple of crosswalks somewhere between there and College Avenue. So you can see the connection to downtown from Fusion, and of course it'll be back and forth because Fusion Homes are also going to have some great things to actually visit within the Fusion Homes development itself. Next map, or next slide, please. So some good news. The province gave the green light to Matero Bridge, pedestrian bridge, and we're super excited to see that happen because even though we don't have bike lanes on Victoria Road, it will actually create some other connectivity possibilities, and that should be, I think, starting 2025. The slide to the right is something that our Chair Adrian actually delegated for, and now we have e-bikes, or e-scooters, I should say, are now legal in many areas of Guelph. Next meeting is Adrian for that, by the way. Next slide, please. Another thing that we delegated for, and actually one of our newer advocacy committee members spoke on, is reduced parking requirements in downtown Guelph for new developments. And that didn't pass, but anyway, in the future, we're hoping for maybe something different happening with that one. The one on the right is, I think Connor is going to speak on that one. It's something we both are disappointed with, but hopefully improves in the future.
So we've had a lot of attention on winter maintenance, despite it not being too much of a winter. This honestly started with our friends with Cycle Waterloo and in Toronto with our friend Dave Shaw at the Cycle Lawyer. All of us as a collective have raised awareness of social media as well as to the media, in our case, all today. GCAT has voiced our opinions about safety concerns with more prompt actions despite the city's adherence to the minimum provincial winter maintenance standards. So we all deserve safe and reliable access to transportation, and that includes the bike lanes and sidewalks. The day of my interview, actually for this article, I had filmed the clip that's in there. I would not have normally taken that bike lane due to the conditions, but we have myself going through with the 360 camera, and at some point I say in a sing-song voice that I'm going to die. I'm a little dramatic, but I was not comfortable with the condition it was in.
Thanks, Andrea. I think the next slide, please. So this is a really big news. So council has given initial approval to protected bike lanes on Wyndham Street, and we had 4 great delegates from GCAT delegate on this, and I think first was Ben Cullen, and he gave a great example of why he, as a 250-pound man, was he wasn't comfortable, but he was able to bike up downtown, and he gave a list of all the places that he actually shopped at during his visit downtown. But he said his wife, who's only 120 pounds and got a small kid, they would never bike downtown with them. So the protected bike lanes that are being proposed for here will make a big difference, and we're hoping that this project will move on fairly quickly, actually. There's a ratification vote on the 27th where we will be delegating again on this issue. This is actually on the right side of the city staff, and you can see our CAO on the right and some other city staff, and that's myself and another city staff person. It's kind of a pop-up to kind of show what it will look like when it's done. So you have the car parking and the bikes better than pylons for protection, of course. There'll be some sort of barriers, and then there's probably a patio on the other side, on the inside. Next slide, please. So this is actually the really neat thing about this is the staff came up with this really neat flexible street design. So it's kind of a compromise for us because one of the plans showed protected bike lanes as a permanent installation, but the flexible street design actually allows for like a winterish and summerish. This is a city plan, but we actually changed our titles a little bit just to give a little more clarity. So you can see in the winter, we still have a protected bike lane, but it's also parking protected and also with a bollard. And the parking returns for the winterish season, so it's parallel parking. So it's basically the same as it's always been. And on the right side during the patio season, patios of course take up the parking spaces. This is just one cross section, and then you still have the bikes and bollards and cars, so it's protected. And of course, the street now is only going to be 2 lanes, where previously it was 4. So the whole street should slow down, which will make the whole area much more enjoyable and safer for everybody. Next slide, please. So I'm at the end of my presentation, to keep it short, and this is my grandson, and this is one of the redevelopments of a former Uniroyal factory on Huron and Allen Street, and we're super excited about developments such as this because it really shows the future of what things could be like. And you'll see the actual, when the video hopefully plays, that they actually put a bike ramp into the basement, into secure parking for bicycles. So,
do you need audio for it? Do you need audio for it? You do need audio?
Yeah,
Okay.
just speak.
Yeah. You flag Brennan down? You need to switch over the audio. Or Braden.
Braden, can you switch the audio?
Thank you. Please, yep. Thanks. Hey, Mike.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah, yeah. Would you like to live here? Yeah, so would I.
Yep, switch back over. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, he's got it. Okay, try now, Mike. Yeah, it's on. Might be. Try.
Hello?
Yep, there you go.
Great, so I'm really proud of my grandson, obviously, and I didn't have to give him much prompting for this thing. He kind of knows stuff because I keep kind of telling him about it. So we're advocating for more active transportation products just like this, and I'm sure the GID will be part of that. And we're really looking forward to the keynote speakers, to Jennifer and Mayor Guthrie, to see what the possibilities are for the future of both. Thanks.
Our advocacy committee, I took pictures what I'm doing. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I'm thrilled to share how our social media journey has evolved over the past year. It's become more of a virtual meeting ground where we can form new connections and we share our stories, the good and bad. We laugh together, and I think I'm very funny, but I don't know. So we laugh together at silly games and tackle serious situations at the same time as they're happening. So through memes and fun content, I drop it all in. But at the end of the day, we're getting more community engagement. Our social media presence isn't just about jokes and likes. It's about taking action. So when we ask you to sign the petitions, attend events, take the mini polls, reach out to representatives and delegate for important situations, that's because we believe that our power lies in the collective. So together we can be a force for change, and our social media presence is just one of the ways that we're making our voices heard. So keep engaging and keep sharing, and let's make a difference both online and off.
Thank you very much to our advocacy team for that excellent presentation. Our advocacy committee has been working very, very hard over the last year to work towards one goal, that is a connected and complete safe cycling and walking and rolling infrastructure all across our city. We have a vision that no matter where you are going, that you will feel safe getting to there while you're choosing mode of transportation. And they work night and day tirelessly towards that goal. So thank you very much, Mike, Andrea, and the whole team. Mike?
So the headline says it all, actually. Why we awarded CAM with this award. We want to be more intentional with our time, our relationships, our energy, and our ecological footprint. Unfortunately, Cam and his family couldn't be here tonight, but he asked me to say a few words on his behalf. And so here they are. Some would say that our struggle is against the car. We have found the real struggle is against hurry. It's hurry that pressures us to waste, to speed, to extract, to dehumanize. Our protest is to slow down, to live simply, to know and to be known by our neighbors, to experience the seasons, to Sabbath. We believe that life was meant to be savored, not rushed. We're grateful for the GCAT community and the many people in our city who share this perspective. Thank you for thinking of us for this award. I really hope everyone gives a big applause to him, because he's a perfect example of living a car-free lifestyle. They gave up their car And you can see this is how they get around now, and they're doing it, saving money and really enjoying life. And also a big hand to Andrea for her actual design of the T-shirt that we're going to give to Cam tonight. It's amazing, and yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, we just wanted to give a shout out to Cam for being such an idol to all of us and really exemplifying and living what he believes. So that's why we just wanted to give him a little shout out. And this is the first time we're doing this Top Cat Award, but keep an eye out for the future because we would love to keep this one going. All right, I will do the Dr. events now.
Okay, we had a fantastic year in events. And so the events by numbers in a nutshell are that we had 377 participants in 6 different Marshall drives and walks, including Doors Open, which we had walks and rides for, Love Your Bike, Bike the Night, Praise the Lord, Country Rumble, and the Fall Colors Ride. So those were all super fun. Next slide, please. We also had a great year for bike valets, and we sort of really improved our system. You can see here we got these snazzy aprons. Guess who made those? It's Andrew. Yeah, it's great to have someone who's a crafter on board. Anyway, so we parked 767 bikes total, which is pretty amazing. If each one of those people drove, some of them get carpool, but let's just pretend we took 767 bikes, cars off the road, and have those people bike to these events instead and give ourselves on the back for that. So those people were coming to the Multicultural Festival, the Good Games, and Rib Fest. So you can see our snazzy new GCAT Bike Ballet logo, and we're hoping to have those at those events this coming summer again. If anyone would like to volunteer, can touch lunch. All right, next slide, please. And lastly, we had about 507 people attending talks and films about active transportation. And those included the Guelph to Goderich event, which was right here in this very place. Know Your Rights with the biking lawyer, Dave Shelna. The Engine Inside film screening, which was incredibly successful and it absolutely sold out and waiting lists. And we also had a student matinee, which was sponsored by the city of Guelph and allowed additional 120 students to see that film, which was fantastic. We also had 250 Guelph high school students who had a presentation on active transportation. And through a grant, we were able to provide GIS maps with safe bike routes and walking routes to school to 3 different high schools. Well, 2 of them are still on the way, but we're almost done at this point. So a huge thank you to all of our volunteers. As you can see, the bike ballets in particular were very volunteer intensive. And our amazing GCAT programming events committee. So that is Mike Hager, Mike Dunn, Adrian Salvatore, all 3 pennies. Andrea Biggood, also on 2 pennies. Claire Braden, Laura Graham, Dorothy Fair, Clarence Henderson, and myself. And I think our crowning achievement of this year, also Andrea's achievement, was our new incredible GCAT sticker series with puns, collectible items for kids, teens, and adults alike. You can pick yours up on the way out at the registration desk. And that's my events committee report.
Thank you so much, Katie. Those stickers are free, well fun and last. Our events committee has worked really hard over the last year, as Katie talked about, just putting on so much great programming. She put out an appeal for volunteers, but I'm going to echo that. Folks, if you have a little bit of time or a lot of time, whatever works for you, please come out and help that committee. And it's your time, volunteer hours, it makes it all work. So thank you, Katie, and thank you to you. Next slide. I will hand it over to Andrea for governance and administration.
So a big thank you to the members of the Governance and Administration Committee. You can see their names up there. Rarely worked with such a dedicated group. They were really positive throughout the year. We meet on a monthly basis. Our goal is really to improve the overall effectiveness of GCAT, and I think we're well on our way. Some of these prior initiatives you might be familiar with, we did implement the committees structure where we now have 3 committees. Terms of reference were created for all 3 committees passed by the board. We created officer role descriptions for the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, as well as the secretary. And we underwent a strategic planning initiative which started in 2022, continued throughout 2023 with the assistance of 10C. And there were a couple of people there, Julia Grady, you might be familiar with her, and Heather Watt-Capitan, who really assisted us in the strategic planning. One of our goals from the strategic planning is really to work our way from being a working board and transitioning to a governance board. A key aspect of that would require really to get an ED or a part-time ED in place. And we could go to the next slide. You'll see what we accomplished was to get a grant, and the grant comes from the City of Guelph Community Grant Program. So this is a shout out to that program and a big thank you. We received $12,000 in funding, $7,000 for the first year, and $2,500 for each of the 2 subsequent years. And this has allowed us to obtain CRM, or Client Relations Management software. We're using something called Willow Green Light, and we were also able to get QuickBooks for this. And we had a part-time employee, Virginia, working as a new membership coordinator. And you'll see the results of that when you log in now to renew your membership or to get a membership. You'll see it's fairly smooth sailing through the process. It's all online, and we use Stripe payment mechanism, and the money is quickly dealt with, and hopefully you all found it to be a fairly seamless process. One thing you might have noticed at the beginning of this year was that we worked on membership restructuring. This was in consultation with you and also reviewing other similar organizations. One of the goals was to allow people who, for instance, did not have the ability to pay to become a member, but also for us to earn or receive more funds for people willing or wanting to assist us in a greater capacity. So we created those 4 different groupings of membership that people can then donate or really become a member and pay accordingly. One of the bigger engagements that we had this year was to become compliant with the ONCA, or Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporation Act. So we worked our way through the old bylaw and created an entirely new bylaw, which we feel is compliant with the act. There was an email that went out to you which connected to the new bylaw and also to the old bylaw in case you're interested in reading it. I know some of you did, Nick, for instance. And Luke Weiler is a member who may be online right now, and he is, I understand, is online. And I received input from both Meg and Luke, and I'll be reviewing that with you very shortly. The new bylaw does various things, but one of the things that, for instance, took away the president and the vice president and compliance with the ONCA, replaced that with the chair and vice chair. There are a couple of other things that I pointed out in the announcement email. So we, for instance, have directors now limited to a 10-year term or no more than 10 consecutive years. We've also will be looking at passing changes to our articles so that the number of directors will be between a range of 5 to 13, and that the board then set the number somewhere between that range. We currently have 9 directors. In our bylaws, we will set it at 9, and we will pass a motion, or hopefully pass a motion. I'm hoping that we can then have the board change that number between that range that I'm setting out. So first of all, you'll see that there's a motion in front of you to adopt the new bylaw, which was passed by the GCAT board on October 11, 2023, in place of the existing bylaw, which was approved by members on February 20, 2020. I'd like to point out that I heard from a member, Luke Weiler, and Luke Weiler indicated that he wanted to make a change, or there was a concern that he had with the use of the word quorum, and I'm just going to set that out for you.
The members motion? Yeah. Yes.
So this is a member's motion, and the motion is really to amend 2 sections in the new bylaw. And just to explain it very quickly, the old section 1.3 referenced that the board, by special resolution of a minimum of 67% of quorum, may change the initial number of directors and set the numbers of directors within the range set out in the articles. Now, quorum is defined in the bylaw as a majority of the directors. So for, as an example, if we have 9 directors, a quorum would be 5. The intention here was that it would be 67% of the directors in a meeting who are voting can change the number of directors. By using the word quorum, Luke pointed out that that could mean that it would be 67% of 5 directors. So it could possibly be 4 out of 5 directors could change the bylaw. And even if you have 9 directors showing up, let's say 4 voted in favor of changing it to 11 directors and 5 voted against it, 4 is actually 67% of quorum. Quorum being defined as a majority of the directors. So we've amended that to read as follows. Bring that up a little bit.
Bring it up.
Yeah, that's fine. The initial number of directors shall be set at 9. The board may by resolution from time to time change the number of directors to within the range specified in the articles, which is that 5 to 13. Such a resolution requires approval of not less than 2/3 of the votes cast. So that was the intention, and Luke pointed that out. So by a member's motion, we are asking that this be amended, and I'll go right to the second motion as well.
Is that below?
So we use the word quorum again in the second part of the bylaws, and this has to do with disciplinary action or termination of a director's term. And again, what we had intended was that if 67% of the directors at a directors meeting voted to invoke discipline, then it would go ahead. We didn't want it to be 67% of quorum again being defined as a majority of the board. So we changed that, or by, again, this is the member's motion, where you'll see what's up there is to now read as follows. And if, bring that down. The board may by resolution authorize disciplinary action of a director or terminate the director's term of office for violating the corporation's bylaws, violating the corporation's equity, diversity, and inclusion policy or other policies, for failing to comply with the director's job description, and any other reasons calling for discipline at the discretion of the board. Such a resolution requires the approval of not less than 2/3 of the votes cast. Then we got rid of the word quorum. So based on Luke's motion, is there anybody, first of all, does anybody have any questions or concerns about this? And can I ask for a seconder for the motion, bar none. All in favor? And it's a substantial majority in favor. So that takes care of part one of the motion. Go back to the
Slides.
So any questions on the bylaw itself? Yeah.
I think we just went through a lot of the records.
Yeah.
So point one of the bylaws are where the conflict doesn't require the city. Number of records, that's articles.
Yeah.
That's in the articles. So are we going to be passing by special resolution? Change the articles to a ban? Is that happening, or-
Yeah, so.
Andre, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, why don't we go,
Repeat the question.
so, like, what, yeah. Yeah, so what Meg is asking is that, are the articles going to be amended by special resolution to make room for the number of directors that we're setting? Is that a fair way?
Well,
And- yeah.
there's two special resolutions.
Yeah, and can I just go to the next slide? I'll show you those resolutions and then, so you'll see two motions before you. And the first is a special resolution to amend the GPAT articles to set the range of directors between a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 13. So the articles, or ONCA, the Not-for-Profit Corporation Act, allows the articles to set the number of directors and or set a range of directors. And then also you'll see a second special resolution in front of you, which is to set the number of directors on the GCAT board at 9, which is what it is currently. And then to authorize the GCAT board from time to time to change the number of directors to within the range specified in the articles, which is at 5 to 13. And that such a resolution requires approval of not less than 2/3 of the votes cast. Does that address your concerns? And again, thanks, Mick, for pointing that out. It's the articles that require or that gives the board the authority to make the changes to the number of directors. So we've put that in the bylaws as well, and then the bylaws mimic the authorization that the articles will include. So let's go to the bylaw first. And any questions regarding any of that? Okay. So we go back to the first motion.
I think on the next slide.
Go back one slide. So this motion is to adopt the new bylaw, again, as amended by the motion that was just passed. Can I have someone? So your name, please? Okay, the motion was put forward by Cal, and any seconders? So James? All in favor? Thank you, that motion passes. So this motion is a special resolution to amend the GPAT articles to set the range of directors between a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 13. Again, any questions? Right, someone propose that motion? Yvette? And then seconded by, sorry? Charlie? Okay. Okay. Now, this is a special resolution requiring 80% of the membership, so I'm gonna ask the membership again. All in favor, please put up your hands. Again, I see this is a strong majority. Is there anyone voting against? Okay, I see one vote against. Okay, so the motion passes. Motion number 3 then is a special resolution to set the number of directors at 9. And again, to authorize the GCAT board to change the number of directors within that range of 5 to 13 from time to time as it is necessary. And that requires approval of not less than 2/3 of the votes cast. So again, can I have someone proposing that motion? Sorry. Touche. And someone second that?
Second, Chris.
Chris? Okay. And all in favor? Okay, again, substantial majority. Anyone against? Okay, 2 votes against. That motion passes as well. Okay, thank you, everyone. Takes care of the meeting.
All right, well, we're approaching the time in our agenda where we will just in a moment take a little break. But I just wanted to again thank Andre for all of his work and thank him for going through that very key, important, vital role in our organization. Thank you, Meg. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, everybody who participated in this conversation and gave us feedback. Governance isn't always sexy, but it is vitally important to running our organization. And I will take a moment just to say, for our new members or folks who aren't familiar, the committee system that you saw demonstrated earlier tonight is a relatively new thing for GCAT. And it came out of excellent work done by our governance committee with a big shout out to Ted, who's joining us online from a warmer place, for writing that up and for getting us functioning with the committees that enabled us to bring on more volunteers, increase the size of our organization, and run more effectively and efficiently, and do more. Governance is so important. So thank you, Andre. Thank you to the whole governance team for everything you do. With that, we'll take a brief break and then come back for election of new directors. Okay, so we currently have 2 vacant positions on the board that we are looking to fill, and we are very thankful to have 2 great candidates looking to fill those vacancies. We have Matt Olson and Jason Jeffs, and we're just going to give them a little moment to tell us about themselves, although we know that you've already received their expression of interest where they gave some background. So I will start with Matt. Matt, if you can come up. Yeah. Evening, everyone.
My name is Matt Olson. I've been qualified for almost all 41 years of my life. I have a background in adventure tourism and environmental event planning. I'm really excited for the opportunity to join the board and help promote safe active transport here in the city. We are a no-car household. 5 years ago, we hung up our keys for bikes. The only vehicles in my garage are canoes and bicycles. I have 4 elementary school-age children who cycle and walk to school every single day, and I really don't think there's been a more important time here in the city to help promote active transport. So if you have me, I'd really love to add to what you guys have on and so let's do that.
So my name is Jason Jeffs. I was born in Guelph. I used to live in the West End, and then I moved to north of Exhibition because of the hamlet. So I'm an industrial programmer, so I program robots for a living. I volunteer with GCAT, volunteer group rides, bike ballet, I'm on the advocacy committee. Tell you a little story about kind of what I saw with the events there. So on the valet, I saw my neighbor walk up, and he came up with his bike and his two little kids. And I thought to myself, this can't be real. He usually drives around our neighborhood in his raised pickup truck. So it's proof that if you can build infrastructure from someone's house to where they want to go, it might make a change. I was pretty impressed with that. So we want to keep that going. So that's kind of why I want to further along. So because we have two candidates here, and we can get Matt back up for just a second. We have two candidates and we have two vacancies here, so we will be doing a confirmation of their candidacy rather than a ballot election for this one. So I will have Matt come up here, and we'll start with Matt. Stand here. So, simple show of hands. We accept Matt's candidacy for director of the board. I'm going to call that a very clear majority. Congratulations, Matt. We're excited for you. All right, folks, same thing. We've heard from Jason. Do we accept his candidacy to the board? Very clear majority. We're excited to work with you, Jason. Thank you. For prizes, Katie.
Next slide, please. I'm very happy because we just need about 20 minutes in the schedule. So we have an awesome door prize this evening that is donated by Sweet Cheeses, which you can find at the Guelph Market. And they are a purveyor of diabolically good cheese and charcuterie. And Andrea, again, with some technical wizardry, put everybody's names into a spin the wheel, which we can't technically put up on the board, but honest to goodness, we spun that wheel. And Terry Guillemot, you are the lucky winner of the Sweet Jesus Prize. Come on, Terry. Well, we're really hoping it's not vegan. If you are vegan, then it's for friends. Okay, thank you.
Don't go far, Katie, because we're going to take a moment. Kyle, can you come up here, please? We're going to take a moment to say goodbye to our outgoing directors. We are so sad that they are leaving our board, but thankful for the contributions and the time that they committed and all the great things that they did. First, Katie. Katie chaired our events committee. She was an absolute powerhouse and was a big part of the reason we've done so much great events and programming in the last year. Not all of that would have been possible with Katie. She leaves very big shoes to fill, but I know that we have great members in that committee who are going to step up. Katie? Thank you very much from all of us. Kyle was a volunteer for both our advocacy and worked with our events committee. As I mentioned earlier tonight, he was a powerhouse with the film that we saw November of last year. That was a great presentation and some very cool programming that we are very happy to have done. So thank you for that, Kyle, and for every other advocacy and initiative that you participated in. Kyle? All right, well, with that, we're done. I need a motion to adjourn. I need too many hands. Here, and the second, one more, and Gordon, and we're adjourned. Thank you, folks. Folks, we are very, very excited to announce our keynote speakers of the night. You can take your seats. We are so excited to have Cam and Jennifer Juice, who need very little introduction amongst the cycling community. They're going to share with us lessons from Copenhagen. And with that, there you are.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, congratulations to getting through that meeting. I know how it feels. No, it was great. And to the new directors, good for you. Congratulations. And I just thought I would, just before we jump in, I just thought I would start by saying a little very quick quick story, because I know we're on time, but the video that Mike showed of your grandson, is that right? I will never forget the day that Bob Bell called me, Councilor Bob Bell, and said, we can't let this project go forward, Cam. We gotta do something really unique here. We gotta really hold their feet to the fire on like a ramp or something like that for the bikes to go down underneath and get parking underneath there. And Bob made, I know this, Bob made call after call after call with all the different counselors. And that was a big position of council to get that integrated into that project on Alice. And so when you see, I haven't seen it yet, that was the first time I saw it in that video that you just showed. But when you see it, it's number one, a really great thing. But number two, it just reminds me of Bob. Let's give him a huge round of applause. So my name is Pam, and I'm Jenny. And Jenny works here at the City of Guelph. There's a few City of Guelph employees here, and I just wanted to tell you that we are extremely blessed in this city to have the staffing that we have on the engineering, the planning, and on the active transportation files. I'm telling you, they're second to none and they're fantastic. You should be very proud of the advocacy, kind of internal advocacy that they do inside City Hall to really try to make a difference for our community. So let's give it up to for our staff. So an opportunity popped up for us to go to Copenhagen last year. It was a grant that was done through the federal government, through the health, do you remember? I forget, what was it?
Canadian Health Institute, Canadian Healthy Cities Research Institute.
That one, whatever, which one that one was, yes. And so we had to apply, and it was actually pretty big application process, but we got chosen to go. And other cities across Canada got to go as well. And it was kind of all under the umbrella of 80 cities. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that. But yeah, they're great. And so very quickly, 80 cities, it's like trying to create a city that's awesome for an 8-year-old, just as much as it would be good for an 80-year-old. And if you kind of look at those two bookends of how you create an awesome city, that's what 80 cities is all about. And going through this Copenhagen experience, was amazing, and it really brought about all the changes that actually I see our staff and advocacy groups such as GCAP try to bring forward, and how we're trying to actually move the needle on some of this stuff at council and through City Hall as well. So we're here to kind of advocate a little bit as we tell our story. And if I go to the next slide, this was kind of Team Guelph here. And so this is, we had to sort of meet the criteria under the application process to even get the funding to go. And so all these people put their name forward, and that is me a long time ago, 40 pounds less with more hair, but sure, that's me. Yeah, it was an amazing team. And it was an amazing team because I mean, I knew Jen, and then of course I knew like Dr. Mercer as an example, but you know, even some of these other ones I didn't really know or sort of knew a little bit. It's just a unique experience to get to know them over several days together. So we had people from the university at TMU there, and we had to, as I said, meet that criteria to get the application funding to go. I'm going to turn it over to Jenny just to go to the next slide.
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, it was really fun. So as you mentioned, our research lead was Linda Rothman from the Toronto Metropolitan University, and she's one of the lead researchers right now on active transportation and road safety and vulnerable road users, particularly youth and children. So it was really great to have her as part of the team. And this trip to Copenhagen was funded through the Canadian Institute for Health Research, and they have a whole Healthy Cities initiative that is part of their program of work. So we really want to make sure that we make a shout out to CIHR for this opportunity. And the program is really about developing a workshop that brings together people from public health, from municipal government, and looking at how we design and implement and evaluate healthy cities and try to replicate some of the best practices from elsewhere in the world, like Copenhagen. Next slide. So We had lots of presentations in the time that we were there, and I'm stealing this slide from the CIHR presentation to us. But what this slide really tells us is about how complex it is to really strive for healthy cities. It's not just about health, it's not just about cities, it's about making sure that we look at the interaction between these different sectors, such as the built environment, of course, like how we build our streets and our buildings and all the infrastructure that supports us. It's also about the natural environment, making sure that we have trees and open spaces that help clean the air and deal with some of the air quality situations, clean water. It's about the policy environment, making sure that the directions for how we build cities is supporting those goals of healthy and active transportation. And it's also, of course, about individual physical health and well-being. So it's complex. It's not just about infrastructure, building bike lanes and building roads. It's not just about any one of these things. It's about all of it and how it interacts together. And Cam and I, as you know, he's the elected official side of things, and I'm the city worker side of things as municipal government. It's obvious we have certain roles to play here, but we also need the role of public health, and we also need the role of the citizens and the community in this. It's not just, you know, one actor that can influence all of this. So next slide, please. And so, you know, Cam kind of introduced 880 cities. Sounds like, I think this crowd knows what they are all about. But really one of their missions is to ignite action and challenge the status quo to create healthier, more equitable, and more sustainable cities for all people. And they are so good at bringing together people from different sectors to really wrestle with some of these challenging issues and topics, and do a lot of facilitation on workshops to collaborate on these intersectional issues. So they were our hosts. They kept us organized and on schedule. They made sure we had amazing speakers and tour guides and organizations to present to us throughout the time that we were in Copenhagen. Next slide, please. Cam.
Thank you. So here are just some stats about Copenhagen. It's actually not that much bigger than Guelph, but you can see the population difference, right? So the population is, of course, way bigger, 4 times as much as Guelph. And look at how many people are living in apartments, right? When we continue to talk about density and the importance of density, you know, that's how they pack them all in, right? So it was, yeah, it was pretty amazing to see all different styles of housing, old and new, and it all kind of cohesively working together very, very well. I'll turn it over now just for a bit more stats to kind of set the stage.
So next slide, please. So, I mean, we all know Copenhagen as being one of the lead cities for biking in the world, but it was that like a long time ago, and then it wasn't that, and then it was that again. So I wanted to kind of take you through a bit of the history of Copenhagen as we were presented this story. So in the first half of the 1900s, like up until the 1950s, lots of people biked. Not a lot of people had cars. It was a very traditional European city where everything was compact and cars weren't really a big factor. It was really convenient, it was easy to get around. So that's this picture down here where we see like some of these people in the 50s kind of enjoying their commute or going to get their groceries or whatever they're doing. And then, you know, we got back to the 2020s where again, like there's a lot of people who bike, and I'll talk about some of the statistics of that in a few slides. But then next slide, something happened. They had this car invasion in the 1950s and 60s. So it kind of hit around post-war baby boom era. A lot of European cities had an influx of funding, and economically they were doing really great, and they wanted to be progressive. And progress at that time was cars and freedom and mobility. So they made a lot of efforts to convert their beautiful public spaces into parking lots and widen their roads and tear down buildings so they can have more lanes. And they wanted to even start tearing down communities to build highways. And at one point, you know, so we have this graph here that shows what the impact was on cycling. So, you know, in the late 1940s and through the 60s, you had quite a high, you know, over 60,000 trips by bike on this particular street where they were measuring it. And then throughout the 60s and 70s, you see how that just crashed. As the number of cars went up, people did not feel safe biking. And so the trips by bike just crashed. And fortunately, the citizens started to protest the impacts that this would have on their community and their lifestyle and well-being. And at the same time, in the 70s in Europe, there was the oil crisis. It affected us in North America as well, but it had a big economic impact on the city. The city actually went bankrupt. And as a result, the city had to really rethink how they wanted to build back up again. They had an exodus of families moving to the suburbs. They had a lot of poverty. They had a lot of job unemployment. And so they had to kind of rethink, like, how do we want to be Copenhagen moving forward? And what they wanted was to be a sustainable city, an inclusive city, and a healthy city. And those were their kind of key priorities moving forward. And so now we are in the 2020s, and they are repeatedly amongst the top 1 or 2 cities in the world for biking. They sometimes lose out to Amsterdam, and I'm looking for my friend Benita in the crowd because she's my favorite Dutch colleague who spends time in Amsterdam. And so now they experience about 50%, 48%. Specifically, 48% of all of the trips made every single day in Copenhagen are made on a bicycle. And just to put that into context, in Guelph, we are about 3% right now. And I'm excited about 3% because when I started my job, it was 0.9%. So at least we're really trending in the right direction. But we're still way behind that. So, you know, their goal now is to be one of the one of the cities that makes cycling irresistible, and I love that, like making cycling irresistible. So what does that mean to make cycling irresistible? Well, they have done their household travel surveys, which is something that we also do in Ontario on a regular basis, and they ask people, why do you bike? And these are the top 5 reasons of why people bike. Number 1, it's easy. It's easy to bike, and like Cam is going to talk about how easy it was to bike in the next couple of slides. Like, it is really easy. It's like way more convenient than like even walking somewhere, or definitely more easy than getting in a car. It's speed. It's faster. It's the fastest mode of transportation because the network is so connected and it's so convenient. And then exercise was the third one, and they're very close together, as you can see. So exercise, so their goal of wanting to be a healthy city, like that's part of the culture now. People want to bike because it's active and they get their exercise and they feel good and their mental health is great and they have more time at work, et cetera, et cetera. And then kind of later down the list is like, it's convenient and it's affordable. Like, I don't have my car and I don't have to pay for parking, and like that's kind of nice. But they were like way down the list, and there's nothing in between. So these are their top 5 reasons, and like the environment isn't on there, like sustainability and like climate change wasn't on that list, because that's just kind of an artifact of the fact that it's just the obvious choice. It's just the irresistible obvious choice. So fun fact, 90,000 tons of carbon dioxide a year is saved by the cyclists of Copenhagen instead of driving a car. And so for every 1% increase in their mode share, they save another 16,000 tons of carbon dioxide. I don't have the comparable stats for the city of Guelph. It would be really interesting to try to figure that out. But it's like taking a bike instead of a car is a very measurable way to influence our race to zero targets for the city of Guelph. So this is one of the reasons why we're really interested in continuing to increase our mode share in Guelph and expand our network and do all the things that we saw in Copenhagen. It's also safer, so we learned that, well, safer, it's healthier. So there's a 30% reduction in mortality rate as a consequence of cycling. So that means people live longer. The more you bike, the longer you live. And that's a good thing for society. So I'm thinking maybe Cam can take us through some of our experiences and observations while we were in Copenhagen.
Thanks, Jen. So yeah, the first one I wanted to talk about was just the infrastructure, whereas Jenny said was how easy it was to get around. they really invested in, like, look at this bridge here. It's just awesome. That other one I took a picture of there. There's, in a matter of about 2 kilometers along the harbor, there's 6 bridges. 4 of them are for bicycle pedestrian only. And some of the stats that we were told as we went on our tour were like this bridge right here saved a half an hour in commute time for bicyclists, that one bridge. So the investments that they made there were incredible. I would just add 2 more things about the bridge kind of connection. One, their architectural like beauty of them was evident. So they didn't like skimp out on trying to create something not only functional but beautiful. Second thing is that they really partnered with the private sector. There was a lot of private sector money that went into actually building some of these infrastructure projects as well. So it wasn't all government as well. So yeah, it was just incredible. So I thought I just make that point. And then the other one, I go to the next slide, is just how like quiet it is. And this is really quiet because there's no audio at all. So just imagine. But yeah, here we go. I forget, is this my computer? Is that your computer? Okay, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna. So yeah, here we are. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where we're going here. Yeah, okay, I remember this. So the ability for how quiet it was. Well, there's Charlie behind you. He's the mayor of Saskatoon. How quiet it was enabled like us to talk and like converse with each other, and it was an incredible experience. Really, I mean, just being able to get around is one part, but the experience of getting around, if you could follow me on that, was just incredible. It was smiles and talking, and it was just really incredible. If I go to the next slide. And then this is the other thing too, is that I heard from some people, you know, I always hear from people that don't like something or whatever, and you know, it's all bikes, it's all bikes, it's all bikes. No, it's not. It's not actually. You've got sidewalks, you've got the bike lanes, you've got the bus rapid transit lanes, and you've got car lanes too. It's all different modes. Of course, it's like really skewed to bicycles, but it's okay. Like everyone has their part and has their journey, and it was just extremely easy to get around. So one of the challenges that we actually heard from some of the staff and people at Copenhagen in the municipal sector there that they're experiencing now is, so in North America, we're all about like, oh, we better, you know, expand the roads because we've got more cars, we better put out another lane. Well, they're saying it in the same way now, but not about cars, it's because of cargo boats. So what their infrastructure was for bicycles is now becoming a little bit of a problem because there's a ton of people moving to cargo bikes, and especially e-cargo bikes, right? Because they're so much easier to get around. And you can have, you know, that ability. And so they're actually looking to widen some of the bike paths because of cargo bikes and the influx of that happening. The next point, if I go to that one, is it's the small things for Mayor Cam, but this was I found very interesting. So, you know, it's just these little bars at every single light that you don't have to, like, you know, get off your bike and lean. You can just put your foot resting on this bar. As you can see, this guy right here, and it's just a bar, and it made bicycling easier. It's just a little piece of infrastructure that made it easier. Also, you can see the offset. So the bicycles are actually up front, and the cars are back a little bit, because when the green light goes, the bicycles start. And that's a safety measure. That's a huge safety measure around getting around in that area. So I thought I would just talk about that. One stat, yeah. So this actual bridge that we're about to go over there sees over 36,000 trips by bike a day. That is more than all the vehicles in one day on the Hamlin at Wellington. So it's just constant bikes. And I love bikes, so I'm just in awe. I was biking, but I was also like staring all the time. Oh, look at all these bikes, it was fantastic. So the next slide of something that we really recognized was just this social connection throughout the whole city. That yes, there's this infrastructure to get around, but then there's this, around the perimeter almost of all this infrastructure is this social infrastructure as well. And it just made it available for people to basically stop anywhere and enjoy time together. Whatever they needed to do, it was just delightful. If I could use that word, it was delightful. So it was just so noticeable, the intentionality behind the social infrastructure that they would do and integrate into the modes of transportation infrastructure that they were trying to do as well. And it was for everybody. So it just didn't matter sort of the age. It was available kind of infrastructure for anybody to be using as well. And then the couple more here. This one's pretty simple. This one's just again for they're doing wider paths. There's a lot of eyes on infrastructure. I call it like because here we go. Like, hey, I'm just gonna
20 more years.
Yes, yes, I almost joined her because it was like fun. But yeah, it was, look at, like, just pull over, I think I might just take a little swing here. But it's so cool, it is really, really, really neat. You can just see all the different roads, people walking and whatnot. For the next slide there for me, this was a university that we went to, and you can see the circle there. So this was a very unique design. Do we have another picture of the inside? I don't think we did, no. But there was these circles all in this huge like kind of plaza area. And so you would bike into this area and then you bike into these circles. And inside these like caves, these circle caves, that's where all the bicycle storage was. Hundreds of spots. Hundreds. And so when you're looking at it from just sort of coming in, you don't really see any of the bikes. But in those circles there, all underneath is all secure bicycle storage for everyone. So again, they use a lot of architecture in actually trying to, in fact, these are the architects that won the design to do this, and they were taking us on a tour for that. Let's see, am I passing it over to you now? No, one more. Here we go. This is a picture I took because I love murals, and I think they're a great placemaking type of thing for our city anyways, but they were everywhere. And again, it's just, I don't know, it's just, there's some beauty in art and being in your face and different things all over the place. And that's a funny movie, I like that one anyway, so I took a picture of Monsters Inc. there. But this was literally everywhere, okay? And just yeah, not Monsters Inc., but all different kind of, all different art was everywhere. And that integration, again, of like you're biking, but you're seeing this social infrastructure, and then you're seeing art. And it's a whole experience that is so different than here in North America. Thank you for listening to my part, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so, I think one of the things that we loved was just how you get sucked into this river of cyclists. Every time we got on a bike, you just kind of like got sucked in, and then off you went, and you just follow the flow, and you did not think about traffic, you did not think about cars cutting you off, everybody gave you the right of way, and
everyone was nice.
It was organized.
Yep.
Everyone felt they had their etiquette, and they do their rules, they hand signals, and if you don't do your hand signals, you get dirty looks. But because of that, it's predictable. It was really easy to bike around. But anyway, we're gonna now switch into a little bit of like the way Copenhagen is built and how that also contributes to why it's so bike friendly. So I come from an urban planning background, and so I'm really interested in how the physical urban form of cities contributes to our lives. And I was really interested in the land use in Copenhagen. And in a lot of European cities, if you've been to Europe, which I'm sure many of you have, you'll notice that obviously the density is right there, like they have a lot of this medium or gentle density where it's not high rises, but more like 3, 4, 5-story walk-up type apartments, and they tend to be continuous along the whole block. So you have your mixed use. You've got a lot of activity, commercial activity on the main floor, and then you've got maybe some office activity on the second floor, and then all of your residential is above that. So that obviously contributes to having a lot of destinations close to where people live. And that's important for making trips by your active modes where you have to use your energy much more accessible and easy. The other thing I wanted to point out about this particular picture, which I took, our hotel was 1 block over behind this, and this was kind of like an arterial road, like a major road, like this one right here, like Victoria. But the sidewalks, it's not really prioritizing pedestrian. It's not like a beautiful pedestrian avenue. It's like, no, this is for moving people, and we are going to prioritize moving people. And if you need to walk there, there's some space for you. But really, it's about moving lots of bikes and lots of people in the bus lane, and there's some on-street parking if you really don't have mobility and you have to park and walk. So it's intentional. And if you go to the next slide. But then in the residential area, you have a totally different experience. So Cam and I had, this was my favorite part of the whole trip. It was like day 1. We were walking back from lunch with our team, with, you know, Dr. Mercer and Dr. Gibson and Dr. Wilson and Dr. Rothman. And I'm like such a voyeur. I was like peeking into the corridors, into the courtyards and alleyways, and I was like, oh guys, look, there's this beautiful garden back here. Go check it out. And then this man walks up, he's like, oh, do you want to come see it? I live here.
It was a locked gate.
And he was like, so he lived there. I was like, oh, that's embarrassing, but yeah, I just kind of want to see. So he's like, yeah, come on in. So it turns out he worked in the finance department for the city of Copenhagen, and he happened to live in this complex, and he invited us into the courtyard to check it out. So Cam took this awkward picture of me standing in the middle of this grassy spot, but this is surrounded by those other buildings that you just saw on the previous slide. This is what's behind that. This is a beautiful private little courtyard for the residents of those buildings all around it, like 4 sides, 4 different streets. And it used to be parking.
Parking lot.
This used to be where they park their cars. And now it's, you know, their dining area. They've got lots of shelters for their bike racks. They've got a little playground. They have little edible gardens and vegetable gardens and stuff. And he was explaining to us how that all happened over time. Now, if you want to park your car, you have to pay for a permit. If you happen to drive an electric car, it's free. Everything else, depending on how much it pollutes, it gets more and more expensive the more it pollutes. So that's something cool that the city of Copenhagen is doing. So great example of gentle density and how we can achieve a lot of people living in a small area without having to lose out on like that public space and that privacy that we all crave and want to have. So this next example is, I stayed a few days after the workshop was over. I found myself a little Airbnb. My little Airbnb was somewhere like here in this building. And I took an aerial photograph from Google Maps just to show you again like what that looks like from the aerial view. So same idea, like here are the major routes, like this was rapid transit and beautiful huge bike lanes. This was like a quieter route, but inside I would have dinner and I'd open the windows and I would hear like this, like the one dad that was assigned to like play with the kids before dinner time, and the whole neighborhood of kids is like, play tag with me, catch me. And then you'd hear like the parents being like, okay, it's time for dinner, like so, okay, oh mom, it's time for dinner, like, and they all kind of scatter back and going home. And it was just such a beautiful community feeling. And again, like it's this idea of like you can put a lot of people in a small space. They all have their bike parking back there, they all have their waste bins, they all have their little like garden space, but they don't need to have detached homes with their own backyard and their 3-car garage, and they don't have to drive long distances to get their kid to school because they just hop on their bike and they probably go like, maybe they don't have bike. This was a school. So they just literally like look from the balcony and be like, okay, he's there. So it's like, it's just a whole different mentality on how we design our cities that I really, really loved. And I would love for us to catch on to that and build much more like real mixed use and real compact livable density. Okay, next slide. So I'm gonna shift a little bit. We're gonna talk about education. And I think this is a great group to talk to about education, because I know we got two of our CAN bike instructors sitting right here, and they work with our kids and they work with our adults who want to learn how to bike. I'm so glad that we're offering this program. But we have more we can do, because in Copenhagen, they start in JK. And these kids start learning how to ride their bikes in JK. And they bike every single day, and it's part of their curriculum. And by the time they're in grade 6, they get a certificate, basically a driver's license, that says you can now bike by yourself in the city. And it is built into the school curriculum. So that is where the culture starts. Because we all know as cyclists, when you are driving, you know to give cyclists birth. You know to watch it for them at the intersection and wait till they've started their trajectory before you make your right turn. We know these things because we are cyclists. Every single one of these kids that has gone through school in Copenhagen grows up as a cyclist first and then a driver. So they already have that culture of watching other cyclists built into them from very, very young age. So we love that. We heard all about that. Next slide, please. This is what their school bike parking looks like. We got to visit one on one of our tours, and it was just jam-packed with the teeny little bikes. It was so cute. And it was like so full of bikes. And all of their schools look like this. And that could be us if we really invest in partnerships and working with our school boards and our local schools. Next slide. So Cam is going to talk to us a little bit more about the other end of the age spectrum.
Old man Cam, thanks. So just before we get into some of that more older age with the biking, I just wanted to give you a little bit more quick stats. I'll just read them here. Basically, much is gained economically by per kilometer if someone wants to actually bike than to be in their car. In fact, it costs more to society when someone chooses the car. And 44, well, I'll say it this way, 5.9 million euro is the social economic impact of just some of the cycling infrastructure that they've been able to collect on data and the metrics, especially on, there was a positive net value over 20 years for the time saved because of using the bicycle and the infrastructure, those bridges and things like that to get around. And yeah, there's actually on the social economic investments, there's a 9% return to the community when they invest in that first. So it's really, and that was all provided to us from the Dutch Cycling Embassy. Yes, they have a Dutch Cycling Embassy. So this one here, the next slide, is about age. And look, I want to tell you, this was a game changer presentation that we had, for me anyways. It's called Cycling Without Age, and it was established, in 2012. It's now up to 39 countries. Mike, I believe I called you when I came back about this program. I would love to see the city adopt this. And so if you can imagine like going with these specialized cargo bikes, and you have volunteers, and they take the senior citizens in retirement centers for a bike ride. And the stories, the video, and the impact that had on some of these individuals was so like wholesome and beautiful. And that made a huge impact on me, this program. I would love to see that as well. I would just adore to see this in Guelph. GCAT should take it up, and we should find some kind of a private sponsor to buy the bikes or something. Yeah, I just wanted to say, like as Jenny was talking about, the 6-year-old, they don't forget about the 96-year-old as well. Or, as I said at the beginning, 8-year-old and the 80-year-old, the 80, right? So that was just a beautiful thing. If we could go to the next slide. This is we're facing a number of elderly people, and that's why I thought that also this type of a program would be great. You know, some of them have reduced income, reduced mobility. They've lost their loved ones. They could be all alone, and they're just looking for some fresh air and a time to talk and to reminisce and to be part of our community. And as we sometimes age, we always hear those horror stories of people being left behind. And so, look, there's a lot of people in our community that need help, no matter kind of what demographic or category they might be in. But this is one I just think that sometimes maybe we can latch onto this one a little bit more and provide a little bit more options for people in a sustainable and affordable way to enjoy our outdoors in a way that is really fun. I'll turn it back over to Jenny from perspectives of what the city is still learning.
I love those stories too. The Ola Krasa is the founder of the Cycling Page. So if you are interested in that, we have their contact, and it's definitely a beautiful program for socializing people who might feel isolated. Anyway, I took this picture because it was a very humbling reminder that even cities like Copenhagen are still learning and trying to figure things out. So as someone who works in the engineering department and plans a lot of cycling infrastructure, I looked at this and I thought, oh, what is happening here? You've got like pallets of wood obstructing the bike lane. You've got these weird patched in asphalt ramps, which are clearly trying to like address accessibility for people trying to get to their car, which they would legitimately need to drive around in. But they didn't really think about that when they were planning cycling facilities, because in Copenhagen, your sidewalk is slightly higher than the bike path, and the bike path is slightly higher than the road, so there's these little like ledges. So they're like, oh, well, we gotta fix that. So they just like patched it up. And then they also have all these like divots in the sidewalk as you're going along, because they're like, oh yeah, well, we get a lot of rain and we need to figure out what to do with that. And we gotta get the rain somehow to like the road where the catch basin is. So they don't have it perfect either. And that's really a good reminder, because like no one has this perfectly figured out, and we're all just trying our best to do our best. And we all face different challenges. So in Copenhagen, I was talking a lot to their cycling designer, planner person, and I was like, well, what do you do about snow? He's like, well, we don't really get that much snow, but we get a lot of ice. And so the drainage thing is really important, because if it rains and then it freezes, or if we have puddles and it freezes, then that's a hazard for the cyclists and pedestrians. So for us, it's all about ice. So we can't really learn from them about winter, but he was like, you should talk to my friends in Oslo. They know about winter. They're like, here's a contact. Great. Okay. But we can learn about them about other things, like how to build like wide bike paths and how to like balance the road right away. My favorite part of the conversation, his name's Oscar Funk. And I'm biking along with Oscar Funk, and I'm asking him like all these questions. And we're stopped at a stoplight right in front of the like really amazing bridge that we're about to cross. And I was like, what do people complain about? Like, you guys have it all figured out. Like, do people still complain? And he's like, oh my God, the Danish people, they just complain about everything. Like, we never hear the end of it. They're not wide enough. There's not enough space for the cargo bikes. We don't have enough bike parking. And for me, that was also really reassuring, because I'm like, okay, like, we're never gonna get there. It's never gonna be perfect. And it's good that people complain, because it keeps pushing us forward to like do better. So thank you for continuing to remind us that we can always do better. Next slide, please. So I think just to kind of bring this all back home, a couple of things I wanted to talk about in terms of, you know, what did we learn from Copenhagen? What are we going to do with all of that information now that we're back in Guelph? Well, I'm kind of happy that we are doing a lot of things right. So first of all, with our transportation master plan that was passed in 2022, we have set a mode share target to hit like a 42% mode share of non-auto trips by car in Guelph. So right now we're at 80% of trips are made by car in Guelph, and only 20% are made by like anything else. And we want to more than double that in the next 25 years. So I know that the cycling piece of that is only 10%, and for some of you that might be like, that's not good enough. We think that's a very achievable target, and we are going to start monitoring like our mode share on an annual basis. So if we look like we're trending in the right direction, maybe we'll revisit that and say like, you know what, maybe we can do 15. What are you thinking? Maybe we can do 15. If we're like making the investments and we're seeing that the investments pay off in terms of more bike trips and all that stuff, then we might like revisit that. So the other thing that we learned from the TMP, the Transportation Master Plan, was that more than half of our trips in Guelph are less than 7.5 kilometers long. And that's not a very, that's 24-minute bike ride if you're doing 18 kilometers per hour. That's not a long, that's like a typical commute that people are very comfortable doing. So half of trips in Guelph are less than 7.5 kilometers. Take off the fact that like some of those people are, you know, not able-bodied or have reasons why they can't bike, or it's you know, really shitty weather, or they gotta take their kids to school, or there's reasons. So when you look at that 10% mode share target that we have, it's actually pretty reasonable and achievable, and I really hope we'll get there sooner than 2051, and then we can revisit that. So what we're doing is we're implementing the master plan, and in that master plan we have a cycling spine. That cycling spine is intended to look and feel and be like what we saw in those pictures from Copenhagen. It's for all ages and abilities. It is for people from 8 to 80, whether you're in a recumbent bike, an electric bike, a cargo bike, a regular bike, or you're like a spandex-laden mammal, and you really just want to get there. Doesn't matter. Anybody can use those bike lanes, and that's the point. Mammal, middle-aged men in spandex, and like that, in case you needed that reminder. The other thing we really want to focus on, and we've already started doing this, is taking an equity-first approach. So my staff in transportation planning have taken the lead. We've created an equitable transportation working group in City Hall, and we're really starting to have like focused conversations on how do we get the marginalized to have access to infrastructure, to have access to programs, for us to prioritize filling those gaps where they need it the most, where this is the affordable option for them to get around. So really focusing on that, and then working with our partners in public health and in the Upper Grand District School Board and Wellington Catholic District School Board to look at these opportunities for education. And we're really excited. We're having some pretty fun and motivating conversations based on talking about what we saw in Copenhagen and presenting this kind of stuff. Like, they're really motivated. They want to try to figure something out so we can get into those schools and start enabling kids to be able to feel more autonomous and independent on their bikes. And maybe there's a role for GCAP to play there too. And then finally, like exploring opportunities to build housing that supports active transportation. We have a lot of housing that we need to build in Guelph, and we're really excited to like fill the housing gap, but we need to do it right. And we need to make sure that when our staff are reviewing those development applications, that we're saying like, we need bike parking, it needs to be secure, we need to make sure that the connections are there to the cycling network and the trail system, and make it easy, make it the easy choice, make it the irresistible choice. That's something that I really took away from that. And I think that might be the end. Do you have any final words?
No. Yes. So I'm gonna use my inner Brent Toter for a moment. Ever since I went on this trip, a lot of people love the fact that we went and we learned. But there's always a lot of people in every issue that are going to be completely against this, and they have their opinions. But what I always say to people is, you want your neighbor behind you, to the right of you, to the left of you, or across the street from you. You want them to have a different mode of transportation choice, even if you want to continue to have your car, which is fine. Because if you have your neighbor behind you, beside you, and across the street from you, taking bike, taking transit, taking a different mode, then it's not clogging up the streets that you're all upset about. Right? So if we can counter the point around this for me is it's about choice. And if we make it safe and direct, then maybe for that person on that nice day, they think, why would I take my bike why would I take my car when I know I can choose the bike and get the 7 kilometers I need to go in 20 minutes and enjoy a beautiful day? And that's what this should be all about. Also, it's cheaper, so I like that part too. And with that, and Jenny was great. We've known each other for a few years, but we never really got to know each other until we went on this trip. So it was just really great for me to see the inside sort of scoop of City Hall and planning around this side of it, not the political side. And I would just say that the other cities that we were with, Brandon, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, those mayors, and we kind of hit it off. And the discussions that we had from the political side really showed that we really want to try to bring this back to our cities as well. We've kept in touch a little bit, and they're trying to do this stuff too. So this program that we went on was a big game changer and a very positive thing for us personally, and I think it will translate into our communities here too. So thank you for your advocacy, thank you for being here, thank you for GCAT, and happy to talk later or answer any other questions. Thank you.
From myself, from the GCAT board, and from all of our membership, Cam and Jenny, thank you so much. Two things that really stood out to me in your presentation. First, the land use plan. Everybody in this room knows when we build communities for cars, we get cars. When we build communities for people, we get people. That converted parking lot to a courtyard is such a great example. And the other thing is that survey that started. Most folks weren't cycling because they were cyclists. Most people aren't cyclists, but most people aren't drivers. Most people aren't walkers. Most people are people getting where they need to go in the most efficient, affordable, and effective way. And most of the crowd in this room knows that by your own power, active transportation is that way. But to the folks that don't, we say, try it, you might like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.